Welcome. You're listening to Live with Michael Bluemling Jr., Episode 18. Today, we have a very special guest, Angela Roman, running for U.S. Congress in Oregon, District 5.
Hello, and welcome back to Live with Michael Bluemling Jr. Today, we have Angela Roman with us. She's a U.S. congressional candidate running for Congress in Oregon. And I've never been to Oregon, so I think it's really exciting about what she's doing there. It's District 5. And so, Angela, thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't we start off with giving the listeners a little bit about your background and why you want to run for Congress? Because as I know, running for Congress here in Florida, it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, definitely is a lot of work. So I actually had the opportunity to work for Oregon's 79th Legislative Assembly for the state of Oregon in the House of Representatives as a policy analyst. And with that experience, I was able to see firsthand the way that policy works, first of all, and then how corrupt it really is and the tactics that get used locally. And I could just imagine it's the same nationally. And as a policy analyst, I'm seeing it a lot on a national level. Over here in Oregon, obviously, we're on the map for quite a few tyrannical things, with Antifa mainly. We have a current governor who wants to give illegals driver's licenses. You name it, I've seen it. I've seen the bully tactics from the House floor to being frontline on the streets of Portland with Antifa.
There's no other way to phrase it. These are people that want to harm people. Just here in Florida, I posted something on my Twitter, which is @4USAFreedom, for listeners out there who want to follow me. And I want to get your information at the beginning of the call and later on as well, Angela. But there was a guy who was sitting with two of his friends. I guess he was in an establishment, a bar, and he had a Make America Great hat again. And some guy walked up to him, hit him in the head. And then, some kind of confrontation. And then he went to walk out. The guy who had a problem and spit on him. I mean, this is just unbelievable. And what they're doing in Portland right now is just terrible. Is District 5, where you're running, is that the area of Portland? Does that cover that? Why don't you give the demographics of your area and then also how people can connect with you through your social media and to donate through your campaign?
So I actually am located about 45 minutes south of Portland. And I mean, the drastic change between the 45 minutes is just, it's very telling. Anytime I have to drive north, obviously I'm a patriot before anything. I'm not a politician, but I understand how vital it is that we need to get actual real America first patriots in Congress. And I have, Trump 2020 and We the People and American flag decals and stuff on my car. I don't hide my patriotism. And anytime I head up north, when I'm about 10 minutes outside of Portland, you can just see people drive by me on the freeway flipping me off. It's just, I actually had a car full of guys in a Prius when I was taking my kids to the Portland Zoo up there scream at me out the window, call me some choice names and tell me to leave the country. The insanity is just insane. But you can follow me on Twitter @Roman for Oregon. And then I am also on Facebook where I'm usually banned. I'm on a sort of a ban right now. I've had like 18 different Facebook accounts, but you can follow my campaign page @Angela Roman for Congress. And then if you want to donate, you can go to angelaromanforcongress.com and there's a donate link.
Live with Michael Bluemling Jr. I actually tried to tag you with some promotional and marketing and couldn't find you. So I just got out of Facebook jail today myself. The censorship is just unbelievable. Like what I'm doing with this platform and trying to share conservative values and political and community stories. I mean, this is something that should be mainstream media, not a lot of the things that we hear. I do a lot of traveling. I was just in Atlanta airport flying through from Nashville last week. and I had my Make America Great hat again. And I just love looking at people, but it's shocked because a lot of people are living in fear right now. They're afraid to show their patriotism that you talked about. So what are some of the things, who are you running against? Who's the incumbent there? What is the demographics there? And, what do you hope to change in Washington, D.C., Angela?
So my opponent ultimately is Kurt Schrader. He's a 10-year. So my opponent ultimately is Kurt Schrader. He's a 10-year Democrat incumbent who rides the fence to stay in office, basically. And he recently just signed on to vote for the impeachment of our president. And we have so much going on here in Oregon. For me, my personal experience, I've had death threats because of my support for the president. I've been accused of being a Nazi, a racist, and, all the typical bully tactics that the left and Antifa like to use. And, just for clarity, I'm of Italian descent and my children are half Mexican and I speak 3 languages. So I'm far from a racist. And this Democrat incumbent, we've got homelessness is on the rise. We just hit 4th in the nation for homeless problem. We've got veterans who are, on the streets, homeless themselves, fighting the VA, being pushed to the back. In 2017, we actually voted to give 1.5% of the Oregon lottery proceeds to veterans and the services that they vitally need. And the governor gave them a small increase out of that, but then she took the rest of the money and put it into the general fund so she could do whatever she wanted with it. She threatens to have our senators arrested when they walk out in protest to represent the timber industry. We've got a lot going on over here, and he's just not being a voice for Oregon. We need someone in there that will get in there with clarity, who can sit down at the table with anybody. I'm a walk away, a very proud walk away. And so I relate to many people on different levels and have no problem sitting down at the table. And he's just not willing to do that.
I saw that when in Virginia, I worked for the Democrats, Governor McAuliffe, and it was one of the worst jobs I've ever had in my life. It's so hard to work for Democrats because there's no transparency. Things aren't, as real as they actually are. They always want to push the numbers further than what they actually are. And Virginia actually just got turned blue 2 days ago in the election, which I think is just disgusting. We had 14 people that ran unopposed. So you had no Republican running against them. That's the biggest problem I see in America right now is the corruption, the fraud, waste, and abuse. And then also you see these people that are just running and they're just like, the Democrats are united. They're going really hard and we have to stand up. We have to fight them. We cannot allow them to win this war. We are at war right now. America is at a war for the Constitution of the United States. And these kids are being brainwashed at a young age in our schools. People are teaching them all this radical type, of things that are just goes against what, being an American is. I remember in middle school, I had to recite the Abraham Lincoln speech, one of his speeches. And it's just like 7 years ago, our forefathers brought upon this nation, a nation conceived in liberty. And it's just like, you remember those things, like these patriotic things that, the Gettysburg Address. And that's what I had to recite. But those type of things aren't happening anymore. People aren't giving the opportunities. And one of the things when I was running was on education reform. I think education reform and school choice is so important. So what are some of the platform items that you stand on, Angela? And what are the things that you want to prove to the community and show them about yourself?
Yeah, no, you brought up a really great point. I actually, I have an older son who works full time. I have one in high school and one in grade. Yeah, no, you brought up a really great point. I actually, I have an older son who works full time. I have one in high school and one in grade school. And, September 17th, any schools who receive federal monies are supposed to be teaching the Constitution on Constitution Day. And I asked my high schooler, did they teach you about the Constitution today? And he told me no, they were teaching them about immigration. The indoctrination is just ridiculous. You know, I'm a single mom. I have 3 sons. That's one of the big things that got me into this movement, is because, you know, it's already hard enough raising them to be men. And we have a school system, an education system that is basically trying to teach them that it's not okay to be a man and that it's not okay to have masculinity. And it's just absolutely terrifying. You know, the illegal situation, our border crisis, and, you know, it doesn't even just pertain to illegals. We've got actual terrorists that are coming through that border. And we've got Democrats who are turning a blind eye, acting as if nothing's wrong and that we're the bad people wanting to leave it open. And that's a threat to our national security. And, you know, like I said, I'm a proud walkaway. And my son, the older one, he came home from high school one day and he's like, "Mom, what do you think about Donald Trump running for president?" And at that time I was still, you know, a sheep. And I was like, "Are you crazy? You're half Mexican. He's racist. What's wrong with you?" You know? And he's like, "No, Mom, I promise. We'll sit down and watch the first debate together." So it was actually, he was 14 at the time, that got me involved. And in the first 5 minutes of hearing that first speech by him, the debate, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, this man is telling the truth. You know, I know firsthand what goes on down there at that border. You know, I'm a former gang member, so I know how the cartels work. And what he says is not false. You know, MS-13 are animals. And it really woke me up to the fact that the Democrats really don't care. They care about staying in office. They care about pushing their agenda and getting rich. And it's at the cost of American lives.
Major problem. We have Angela Roman on the line. She's running for U.S. Congress in District 5 in Oregon. Why don't you let the listeners know how they can connect with you and where they can go to your website again, because it's so important, this grassroots effort. We really need people who understand. And there's another candidate who was some other people that were involved in some, you know, gang activity and people that were Democrats, and they're running for Congress now. And I think, you know, reform is really important. Right now, our president is really helping with prison reform, because I believe people
Absolutely.
can be rehabilitated and they can make a difference after the fact. So I think it's important because you have a different perspective. Me, I serve the United States Army. You know, I've always tried to do things the right
Thank
way.
you for service.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, you know, we need more congressional candidates who were in the military, any branch of service. It's really vital to preserving our conservative values and also the Constitution. But when you have people that go through adversity and turmoil, you know, I think everyone has a story. So, you know, I want people to be able to get behind you and understand, you know, sometimes people make decisions in life, but that doesn't mean that they're, you know, not able to become a productive citizen later on.
Absolutely. And, you know, like I said, I'm not a politician. And one of the things that really aggravates me is there's these people have. Absolutely. And, you know, like I said, I'm not a politician. And one of the things that really aggravates me is there's these people that have, you know, they live in gated communities. They've had the silver spoon and they want to legislate on things that they have no idea firsthand about. And, if I had it my way, Congress would be full of nothing but veterans and true patriots who love America. And I believe that's how it needs to be, and that's how it needs to stay. And, you know, I applaud Donald Trump on putting in nothing but constitutional judges in the Supreme Court, because that's very, very vital. You know, we just have to uphold the Constitution. If you do that, everything else will fall into place and we can work everything else out. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at AngelaRomanForCongress.com. And that's where I have a donate link that you can donate to. I'm not bought or paid for by anybody. You know, I'm a single mom. I'm very conservative with my money. And I encourage people to follow my FEC reports, and you can see how I'm spending your money. I don't hide anything. My mom tells me that I'm so honest, it's a curse and a blessing. So, and if you wanted to follow me on social media, it's Angela Roman for Congress on Facebook and at Roman for Oregon on Twitter.
We have the impeachment. We have a lot of division between Americans. We have, family members against family members. It's really decisive right now. The 2020 election, I believe, is so critical for our country and for the future of this nation. And right now I see a lot of rhinos in Congress. I see a lot of people like Adam Schiff in California and Nancy Pelosi in California and Chuck Schumer in New York. You see all these people, and then you see people that are in these positions, and people don't like the politics in these states, and then they move. Like California, for example, a lot of people are leaving the state. Like in Florida, 1,200 people a day are moving here. Like there's, it's like one state has this issue, another state has another. Like every state is so different, the demographics, but the policies and the legislation that's written in Washington, D.C. affects everyone. But there's people that
Absolutely.
hate the policies and the legislation that's being brought to their districts. And then instead of them trying to fight to change it, they leave, and then they're bringing bad politics to other areas of the country. And I think that's really terrible thing. So what are some ways you think that you can have a president's presence in Washington, D.C. that you can really make an impact?
Absolutely. So like here locally, for instance, and what I will take to DC with me is I believe firsthand in educating, Absolutely. So like here locally, for instance, and what I will take to DC with me is I believe firsthand in educating. We have the sensationalism is what I call it, especially with Kate Brown. She panders to the leftist ideologies. And, I've got people, just because I believe in educating and having the conversations, I'm not scared to talk to anybody. And I have Democrats that are voting for me just based off the fact that I've sat down and had a conversation with them. They're pro-choice, which is, that's their right as an American. I may not agree with it, but when I sit down with them and let them know exactly what that policy entailed, like abortion all the way up to the date of birth for any reason. So, like I said, I have 3 boys. I could be 8 months pregnant right now with a girl and get cold feet and be like, well, I don't know what to do with a girl, and walk into a clinic and murder my baby with no medical reason whatsoever. And once they hear that and I put it into that perspective for them, they're like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. That's too extreme. That's not what we were asking for. And they're going to vote for me because they know that even though we may not agree, I'll have the conversations with them. I'll listen to them. And we desperately need that in Congress. I've got opponents right now. I have 2 primary opponents that just walk the hard line. I follow them on social media and they don't answer questions, or they're just like, nope, it's my way or the highway. They're not willing to have the conversations. I've got people that are voting for me just because they say that they know that if they have a problem and I'm in DC, that if they call me, I'm going to call them back. It's not going to be my staff. It's going to be me. And that's something that I've stuck to and I will continue to stick to because I'm not a politician. If somebody is mad at me and they leave me a voicemail saying, I really don't like what you did and I want to scream at you, I'm going to call them back and let them yell at me for an hour. That's fine. But then we're going to talk about a solution.
And when you look at the differences in candidates, I mean, they could be minor, but they could be huge differences. I know in Portland recently, Pastor Greg Locke, who was on one of the previous shows here on Live with Michael Bluemling Jr., he's in Nashville. He has a church there, and he was up there, and they were outside the headquarters for Planned Parenthood. And I didn't realize that the headquarters was in Portland, I believe. It's in Oregon. I think it's in Portland. And they just recently got defunded, in the last few months. President Donald J. Trump was working to defund them, which I think is great. And then the movie came out Unplanned to really, I'm not a woman. So when Unplanned came out, we're talking about pro-choice or pro-life. Obviously, I'm pro-life. Your woman has a choice, but 50% of the babies that are being killed are women. So if you can't say that you're for women and then you want to kill 50% of these babies that aren't even going to be born. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's like, it's so biased and it's so like hateful towards men. Honestly, it's just really hateful. And I think that's racist, honestly, if you think about it. But, I'm not a woman.
Men should have a say.
Exactly. I never realized what it actually entailed, like the process, it's like one of those things but the movie Unplanned, it was so eye-opening, and I was just like, wow, I can't believe this is really the process. I mean, it really puts it like right there in your face, and you're kind of like, this is how I felt before, but I'm moving it more right. Like right now, it's like, it's hard, right? Like it's not acceptable, unless it's a medical reason where, someone's life is at harm's way, or, something that has to be like a drastic, but, if Planned Parenthood, if they were doing their job, like they were supposed to be, they would be there to help to, create situations where people from vulnerable populations aren't forced into these situations, whether it's providing contraceptive or, education. So it doesn't get to that point. A lot of times now our youth are exposed to so much stuff so early, like this gender stuff. And it's just like, a kid has no idea, like you're just pushing this stuff down their throat. And this, from a legislative perspective, is unacceptable to me. I mean, I stand on the far right on this. I will not accept that ever. I mean, and then you have, Republicans in U.S. Congress right now who are voting for, gender changes to be paid by the military in the military. I mean, that's just unacceptable. Like that kind of policy cannot even be brought to the floor. I mean, that's just unpatriotic in my perspective. Like, how could you even think that a taxpayer would pay for that?
It's absolutely ridiculous. I have a neighbor who's, fairly big-breasted, and she has really bad back problems, and it's absolutely ridiculous. I have a neighbor who's, fairly big-breasted, and she has really bad back problems, and she wants to get a reduction because it's for medical purposes, and it'll relieve the pain in her back and give her a better, quality of life. And it's not covered. But if she wanted to transfer into a man, it would be 100% covered. And that's just wrong. They call what she wants to do a selective surgery, but it's so backwards. It's the other way around. And it should not be done at the taxpayer's expense, period.
We're, like seeds that were planted and infesting us with this doctrine and this type of way of life is just forced down people's throats. I respect people. I don't judge anybody. There's only one person. I'm Catholic, but I'm Judeo-Christian. I'm 100% pro-Israel, 100% pro-America, 100% our allies, supporting democracy and freedom around the world. I mean, that's what our, that's what we're supposed to do as Americans, protect our homeland and protect our neighbors from attacks from terrorists. I mean, and we cannot afford to have terrorists here attacking us. And, honestly, when these type of things are indoctrinated into our society, it really it's bad because we have a voice. We have to stop that. Logic has to come to the table at some point where people are like, you know what, this isn't really acceptable. Hey, if this is what you choose to do, 100%, hey, that's your business. That's between you and God. Go do it. No problem. But, when people are adversely affected by decisions that are made when based on gender or race or religion, I mean, that's why we have these freedoms, but not to, isolate people, because when you isolate people, I think that causes fear and that creates the environment that we live in today.
Absolutely. And when they do that, there's, repercussions. Like, for instance, our Portland ice. Absolutely. And when they do that, there's, repercussions. Like, for instance, our Portland ice building up there. What was it, last year? They had the whole Occupy Ice, and they had surrounded the federal ice building up there in Portland. And I was sitting at home and I had the news on, and, they didn't even edit it out. It was all live. And it showed one of the Antifa people there, and they were screaming at one of the ICE agents who happened to be black, and they were calling him derogatory racist things. And, I said, that's it. And in less than 24 hours, I created a group of people to go up there the next day and show our support for them and let them know that not all of Oregon and not all of America is buying into the rhetoric, and that we support them and their mission and their sacrifice to keep us safe. And, they gave us a tour, and I had a conversation with one of the men who happened to be Latino, and he was like, there's people that are painting us out to be bad people, and like we're just picking up Mexicans and throwing them over the border. He said that is like the least of our problem. their main focus, and they're working with Homeland Security, is the child trafficking, the child sex trafficking. They're trafficking babies in diapers for horrendous, evil things. But the Democrats won't tell people that. They don't want to have those
now who won't even speak about it. It's like, are you serious? And you're supposed to be a Republican, and you're supposed to be pro-life. I mean, you're supposed to be a Christian, and you're not supporting our youth, our children. Are you sick? Like, I have a serious problem with candidates who don't want to speak the truth. Like, you have to be honest with the people and the community. But it's like people want to turn a blind eye, and it becomes just financially motivated instead of doing what's right. I know in Portland, a lot of people are leaving that area because of the crime, and the mayor is a part of Antifa, from what I understand.
Yes, he is. He panders to them. And, I was a ticket holder for the Walk Away Portland event. I had the $150. Yes, he is. He panders to them. And, I was a ticket holder for the Walk Away Portland event. I had the $150 ticket. My campaign manager, Mark Callahan, he's actually been attacked by Antifa. There's Luis Marquez, who's one of the main leaders of Rose City Antifa, and he spit in his face last year during a flag wave. Apparently Antifa found out I was going, and they put a call to action out on Twitter demanding that me and Joey Gibson was attending, I guess, that we were not allowed to go, or they were going to basically riot. And they bothered the business owner. They were bullying him to the point that Brandon Straka himself and his national director for the Walkaway movement called me to let me know that they were going to have to pull my ticket.
I saw your post on Twitter, and I think, they stopped you from going, and that's like so un-American, but like that's the kind of fear that they want to create. Antifa is a domestic terroristic organization. It's that simple. Yeah. I see these people walking down the street, children being attacked. It makes me want to throw up, because I served the United States of America for freedom. I did not serve this country, and people have not died. Gold Star families who have sacrificed their life for this country so that people can be attacked on our homeland, and the police or the establishment do nothing. That is absolutely unacceptable.
Absolutely. And by them agreeing and having me not being able to go, they basically just gave in to toddlers, is the way I see it. Absolutely. And by them agreeing and having me not being able to go, they basically just gave in to toddlers, is the way I see it. They threw a fit, they got their way, and now they're going to keep continuing to do that. To be honest, a part of it stems from one of my opponents, who contacted them and told them that I was an Antifa magnet and that I shouldn't be able to go. And he was there. I've been watching videos since yesterday. He was there. He was campaigning. He was handing out his card for Congressional District 5. So I'm getting it from all sides. Oregon needs help, and I know that we're not the only state that deals with this, but we actually have Republican candidates who behave like fascists. They believe the Constitution is only convenient for them. And, as much as I despise Antifa, I'm actually fighting for their rights as long as they're not inflicting violence on anybody. This is America. We have freedom. You have the freedom to stand in the street and do whatever, as long as you're not affecting anybody, and battle.
Yeah, well, the GOP should be working to help, hopefully, for you. But as I, experienced that, you have a lot of people that are socialist or actually moderates who are running as on the Republican ticket because they know they don't have a chance as an independent. They don't want to. They may not be far left, but they're definitely not going to vote as a true conservative for our Constitution in this country. And so, thank God we have a president. God bless Donald J. Trump. Thank you for the work he's doing, because he's at war every single day. He's one of the bravest people I know with all the attacks that he's under. So today we have Angela Roman on the line from District 5 in Oregon. And why don't you go ahead and give your website where people can connect with you and any closing words. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So if you want to follow me on social media, I do interact with people. I'm a public figure. My phone number is posted. I go live. You message me. It's going to be me that messages you back, and that's Angela Roman for Congress on Facebook. And you can follow me on Twitter at Roman for Oregon. And then if you would like to donate, because my campaign desperately needs it to get my name out there. As I said earlier, I'm being silenced by the left and by people claiming to be for freedom. And you can do that at angelaromanforcongress.com and click the donate link. Anything is humbly appreciated, and I encourage you to follow your financials that you donate to me on FEC. I'm honest, I'm transparent, and I'm here for the people.
Thank you so much, Angela. We really appreciate you coming on the show, and good luck on your campaign. And once you win the primary, we'll get you back on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to Live with Michael Bluemling Jr., which airs 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. On our next show, we'll be talking with Amy Fan West, running for District 47 in California. Check out Michael on Twitter at 4USA Freedom and Facebook at Live with Michael Bluemling Jr. Purchase his best-selling book, Bridging the Gap from Soldier to Civilian, at Amazon.com.